I posted a video last week about the differences between reacting versus connecting, and if you're reacting you can't be connecting, and I got a bunch of questions follow up to that to say, okay, so how do you not react? How do you connect? And so that's what this video is about. If you'd like to hear more from me, you can subscribe to my email newsletter, there's a link below, or consider subscribing to this channel. In any case, here we are talking about how do you not react. Well, the answer is you're always going to react. That's the facts. I don't think anyone ever who doesn't at some point in their life react to something. However, what we're going for is that you can have a choice more of the time about whether you're going to react to something or not. Now, the reason it's reacting, what is reacting? Reacting is something arises and there's a stimulus. It's basically like stimulus response. If this happens, then I react this way. And if the car pulls out in front of me, I shout at them and get angry. Or if my partner says this, I react this way. And anytime you have this kind of like stimulus response continually happening, it's not good. And the reason it's not good is that there's no freedom in that. There's no freedom, there's no choice, and there's no connection. You can't connect if every time this stimulus happens, you respond this way. That's why there is so much opportunity to work on how to reduce the reactivity of ourselves to create more ability to respond in a way that we want to. So how do you do that? Well, there's a few different models, but the first model I'm going to talk about is the catch yourself model. So this model is something I've done a lot, and I still do, and it's basically, instead of trying to get it before it happens, what you do is as soon as you realize that you are in a reacting mode, you acknowledge it, and you may go and do something about it. You may go and apologize, or you may make a mental note, or you may do some journaling, but it's basically it's about catching yourself after the fact. And that's often the best that we can do, or best I can do, is to catch myself after. And at first, it might be you react, and then a week later you go, oh my gosh, I was reacting, and then you do something about it. It's a week later. And then you do that maybe 10 times or whatever, and then maybe the next time, instead of it being a week later, you can get it down to 2 days or 3 days. And then after another bunch of those, maybe you can get it down to the same day, a few hours later. And eventually, what you can get to is that when you react, almost immediately after it's over, you can catch yourself, fix it, or do what you need to do in the moment. So that's one model. And with that model, what you're doing is basically building self-awareness, because that self-awareness is what allows you to catch yourself, to notice yourself, your behavior in action. So that's the first one. And with that, ideally, you get so self-aware that you can catch yourself before you say the thing that is the reaction, or before you are reacting. And that is something that you can cultivate. It takes a lot of time. I've done it in a bunch of contexts, but I still miss myself a bunch of times. I'm certainly not perfect in that aspect, but I am a lot better than I was, say, 5 years ago. So I would say that's absolutely worthwhile, noting down when you react and trying to get the time between when you react and when you notice you're reacting down to as close as possible to the inciting event. Okay, so what's the next option, or what's the next thing you could do in order to catch yourself, to not react? Well, if you can raise your level of self-awareness in any capacity, doing lots of different things, you are more likely to catch yourself and be aware of yourself before you react. And so I'm going to give the advice I'd always give about how to increase self-awareness. Do meditation. Meditation is amazing for self-awareness, because it's basically that's all you're doing in meditation. You're being aware of yourself, or you're being aware of something, and you're practicing this awareness skill, and practicing noticing what's coming up, noticing what you're thinking, noticing what is occurring in consciousness, in awareness, in yourself. The next thing you need to do, or you could consider doing, is a simple technique, and this is called the pause button. I've done a video about it at some point in the past, but basically It's as soon as you notice yourself starting to react, so you need to have a bit of self-awareness to do this, but as soon as you notice yourself, you have some sort of a action, which is maybe you actually take a breath, or you touch yourself and go, oh, this is my pause button, I'm going to just take a pause for 30 seconds or a minute, or you just say to the person, oh, can I just take a breath? I need to gather my thoughts on this. And if you can have an action or a little trigger that says, I'm going to use my pause button or something like that, what it can do is help you short circuit that reaction response. And this is very much tied to the self-awareness, so you have to have self-awareness in order to use it. But if you tell your brain, hey, before I react next time, can I please be reminded to do this thing, you're very likely to actually remember and take action on that in the moment. And the next thing I think is really important here is it's more of an approach aspect, and that is to realize that when you're reacting, it's not actually personal. What the other person is saying, it's not really about you, it's about them. Everyone's responsible for their own life, their own world, their own vision for the future, and the way that we respond and react. And so if someone is saying something that's inciting us, it can be very helpful to remember that this is not about us, it's about them. It's not personal. And it's their world and it's their stuff that's going on. And yes, we are certainly responsible and tied into it in some way. But if we can remember that our stuff is our stuff and their stuff is their stuff, often that can help us to create more space that allows us to not react immediately. And the final thing is that it's important to remember that ultimately we're doing the best we can. And if we react sometimes, that's okay. We don't have to be these saintly creatures that don't react and just act all divine and, oh, everything's perfect all the time. But it's important to do our best to try and connect where we can and react as little as we can as well. And with that, that's the end of this video. If you'd like to hear more from me, again, you can subscribe to my email newsletter. Look forward to seeing you in the next video. And until next time, the journey continues.